It was just after midnight on May 14, 2008, when Brandon Swanson made a phone call that would become one of the most disturbing, unsolved cases in modern American history. Brandon was a 19-year-old college student from Minnesota. By all accounts, he was responsible, friendly, and excited about finishing his spring semester. That night, he had been celebrating the end of exams with friends. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. Just another young man heading home after a long night. But Brandon never made it home. Sometime after leaving the party, Brandon's car went into a ditch on a rural gravel road near Lind, Minnesota. The car wasn't badly damaged. It wasn't flipped. It wasn't smashed. In fact, it looked like something that could be handled in the morning. But Brandon didn't wait for morning. Instead, he called his parents. At around 12:30 a.m., Brandon spoke calmly to his father, Brandon Swanson. He said he had driven his car into a ditch, but wasn't hurt. He believed he knew where he was, and thought he was close to the town of Lind. He told his parents not to call the police, saying he didn't want to get into trouble for drinking. He planned to walk toward the lights of a nearby town while staying on the phone with them. His parents agreed to come get him. This is where the case begins to unravel. As Brandon walked, still on the phone with his father, things didn't add up. He claimed to see lights, but when his parents drove toward those lights, they couldn't find him. Brandon insisted he was near Lind, but investigators later confirmed he was actually near Taunton, several miles away. Brandon had misidentified his location completely. Still, he kept walking. For nearly 45 minutes, Brandon stayed on the phone with his father. They talked casually. Brandon mentioned walking through fields. He complained about fences. He sounded tired, but not panicked. At one point, he said he could hear water nearby. Then, suddenly, everything changed. In the middle of a sentence, Brandon shouted one word. "Oh, shit!" The line went dead. Brandon Swanson tried calling back immediately. No answer. Again and again. Straight to voicemail. Brandon never answered his phone again. That single moment, that sudden exclamation, has haunted investigators and listeners for years. What did Brandon see? What did he fall into? Who or what caused him to say those words? His parents called the police right away. Search teams were dispatched before sunrise. They found Brandon's car, easily. It was stuck in a ditch, just as he said. His glasses were inside. The keys were there. There was no sign of a struggle. No blood, no footprints, leading away in a clear direction. It was as if Brandon had simply vanished into the darkness. Over the next several days, authorities launched an extensive search. Hundreds of volunteers combed the area. Dogs were brought in. Helicopters scanned the fields. Rivers, creeks, and culverts were searched repeatedly. Nothing. No body. No clothing. No phone. One of the most unsettling details is how close Brandon may have been to safety. Investigators later determined that he had walked past multiple roads, farmhouses, and even homes with people inside. At any point, he could have knocked on a door. He could have waited. But for reasons no one understands, he kept walking deeper into the rural landscape. Some believe Brandon fell into the Yellow Medicine River, or one of its tributaries. Others argue that the water levels were too low at the time to hide a body for this long. Repeated searches of the waterways turned up nothing. Another theory is that Brandon fell into an abandoned well, a culvert, or a hidden sinkhole. Rural Minnesota is filled with old infrastructure, many of which are overgrown and unmarked. A fall in the dark could have been fatal and nearly impossible to locate. But there are problems with that theory too. No trace of Brandon has ever been found. Not a single confirmed item. Not even years later. There are darker theories as well. Some suggest foul play, though there is no evidence to support it. No witnesses reported seeing another person. No suspicious activity was recorded that night. Brandon didn't mention anyone else during the call. His last words didn't sound like he was confronting someone. They sounded like sudden surprise or fear. Others believe alcohol played a bigger role. Brandon had been drinking earlier that night. Disorientation, poor judgment, and exhaustion may have led him into a dangerous situation without realizing it. Still, even that doesn't fully explain how someone can disappear without leaving anything behind. In 2009, Brandon was legally declared dead, but his case remains officially unsolved. His parents continue to speak about him, keeping his story alive. They believe that answers are still out there, somewhere in those quiet fields, somewhere beyond that final phone call. What makes this case especially haunting is its simplicity. No complex crime scene, no obvious villain, just a young man, a phone call, and a sudden silence after midnight. Imagine being on that call, hearing your child walking in the dark, listening as he talks about fences and fields, thinking help is on the way, and then hearing that one word followed by nothing. No explanation, no closure, only questions. What did Brandon Swanson encounter in those final seconds? Did he fall? Did he drown? Did he stumble into something hidden? Or is the truth something far more unsettling? More than a decade later, the night Brandon disappeared remains frozen in time. And until answers are found, this case will continue to haunt everyone who hears it, because some mysteries don't need monsters. Sometimes, the darkness is enough.